Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. For the past 3 decades or so, there's been this growing trend in education,
Yeah.
towards what they call authentic learning.
Right.
And the big idea here really is how can we make what you're learning feel like it actually matters? Like
Hmm.
it's valuable and useful and relevant to you specifically.
Absolutely.
It's about learning that really sticks with you because it connects to your life and not just abstract ideas.
Yeah. And to really understand this whole idea of authentic learning, we've been digging deep into a major research paper.
Okay?
It's a big literature review with this intriguing title, Stirring a Secret Sauce, a literature review on the conditions and effects of authentic learning.
I like that.
This review, it was published in the Educational Psychology Review back in April 2022,
Okay?
and the authors are Valentina Nachtigal, David Williamson Schaffer, and Nicole Rummel.
All right.
And essentially what they did is they looked at 50 different research studies to see what the evidence actually says about authentic learning.
So it's like a meta-analysis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for all of you listening in today, our goal is to really break down the most important insights from this really in-depth review.
Yeah.
We want to know, does authentic learning actually live up to all the hype? What are the things that make it work really well? And where might the current research be falling short?
Right, because there's always room for improvement.
Always.
So think of this deep dive as your express lane to really understanding a pretty influential idea in education today.
I like that analogy.
So let's start unpacking this secret sauce, right?
Okay.
What are we actually talking about when we say authentic learning?
That's the first big question, and it kind of highlights a key point that the review itself brings up right away.
Okay.
There's no single, universally agreed upon definition of what authentic learning is.
Oh, interesting.
It's a bit like that secret sauce they talk about in the title.
Okay.
Lots of people use the term, but everyone seems to have their own recipe.
Yeah, so many different variations.
Yeah, exactly. But to make sense of all of this, the researchers in this review, they came up with two main ways to look at the 50 studies they analyzed.
Okay.
Design elements. These are like the practical, hands-on components of the learning experience.
Really?
And then intentions of authenticity. And these are like the deeper goals behind why someone's trying to make learning feel real in the first place.
So the design elements are the things you actually see and do during a lesson or activity.
Exactly, the tangible stuff.
There's nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and the review identified 8 major design elements that popped up a lot in the research.
Okay, what are those?
Well, things like learners working together, collaborating,
Okay, makes sense.
tackling tough problems that are kind of like real-world challenges,
Yeah.
engaging in a lot of inquiry and investigation, asking questions like you're doing right now.
Very meta.
Right. Bringing in experts or folks who are actually out there doing the work in the real world.
Yeah, like practitioners.
Exactly. Having learners be in a setting that mirrors a real workplace or real-life environment.
Oh, interesting.
Using real-world materials and tools.
Okay.
Authentic assessment. So how you're evaluated actually reflects how those skills would be used in real life.
Right.
And of course, these days, using technology.
Of course. Can't forget about that.
So those are some of the key building blocks.
Okay, so that's the how, the design elements.
Right.
Now let's talk about the why, those intentions of authenticity.
Okay.
So what are the reasons that educators try to make learning feel authentic in the first place?
Well, the review, they pinpointed 4 main intentions or motivations, you could say.
Right.
The first is all about making the learning activities personally meaningful to the learner.
Yeah.
It's about connecting what you're learning to your own unique interests and making it feel relevant to you.
Right. Like if I can see how something directly impacts my life or my goals.
Exactly. Then you're going to be way more invested in learning it.
Totally.
The second intention is to give learners like a sneak peek
Mm.
into what it's actually like to do a specific job or work in a certain field.
That's interesting.
So you design experiences that are similar to the kinds of things professionals do and the challenges they face.
So they get a taste of the real world.
Exactly. Like a student might pretend to be a journalist and have to research and write a news story.
Okay, so they're getting a feel for the real world applications of what they're learning.
Precisely.
Okay, what about the third intention?
The third one focuses on building connections between learners and a community of people who are already doing this work.
Okay.
So this could mean interacting with actual professionals.
Like mentors?
Yeah, mentors, or getting feedback on your work from people in the field,
Mm.
or even sharing your learning with a real audience outside the classroom.
So like not just turning in a paper to the teacher, but presenting it at a conference or something.
Exactly.
Wow. That's really cool. I can see how that would be motivating.
It's about seeing the impact of your learning in a wider context.
Yeah, and feeling like you're part of a bigger community.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's the fourth intention?
The fourth one is all about bridging the gap between what you learn in like a formal classroom setting
Yeah.
and what you encounter in your everyday life.
Right.
The goal is to show you how the ideas and skills you're learning are relevant to your daily experiences.
So it's about making those connections between school and life.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got the how, the design elements, and the
Right.
why, the intentions.
Yeah.
Now, for the million-dollar question, does all of this actually make a difference?
That's what we all want to know.
Does authentic learning actually lead to, better learning?
Right.
And the review looked at what they called cognitive effects. Right?
Yes.
That's all about, how we learn and understand things.
So when we say cognitive effects, we're talking about whether authentic learning actually helps you learn more effectively, like remember information better or improve your problem-solving skills.
Exactly. So does it actually impact your understanding?
Right. And the review looked at 42 studies that specifically focused on those cognitive effects.
42. That's a lot.
Yeah. It is a good sample size.
And what did they find?
Well, the main takeaway is really encouraging. Most of those studies showed moderate to large positive effects on learning.
So it's looking good for authentic learning so far.
So far, so good.
But they also did this contrasting cases analysis, right?
They did?
So they compared the studies that showed like the biggest positive effects with the ones that show the smallest effects.
Right, to see if they could pinpoint what was making the difference.
So what did they find when they dug a little deeper?
Well, there were some interesting nuances.
Like what?
For example, using authentic materials to make learning feel more real was something they found in both the really effective studies and the less effective ones.
Oh, interesting.
So just because you're using real-world stuff doesn't automatically mean people are going to understand better.
Right. It's not a magic bullet.
It really depends on how those materials are used.
Yeah, like just handing someone a complex problem without any guidance or support isn't going to magically make them an expert.
Exactly. It needs to be thoughtfully integrated into the learning process.
So what factors did seem to be more common in the studies that had the biggest positive effects?
The review found that combining authentic assessment, remember that's where how you're evaluated is similar to real-world tasks, and collaborative learning where you're working with others,
Okay.
that combination popped up more often in the highly effective studies.
Interesting. So it's about how you apply what you've learned and who you're learning with.
It seems to make a difference.
Were there any surprises when they looked at the less effective studies?
Actually, yeah.
How was that?
They found that studies that really emphasized having learners emulate the work of professionals,
Okay.
sometimes those were actually linked with lower cognitive effectiveness.
Really? That's kind of counterintuitive.
It is.
You'd think that getting as close as possible to what professionals actually do would be the best approach.
Right. You'd assume that.
Why do you think that might be?
Well, it could be that if learners don't have a solid foundation of basic knowledge and skills, jumping right into complex professional tasks could be overwhelming.
Yeah, too much too soon.
It's like throwing someone who can't swim into the deep end of the pool.
Exactly. They need to learn the basics first.
Right, so they might get bogged down in the complexity and miss out on the core concepts.
Okay, so it seems like authentic learning has a lot of potential to help people learn better,
Definitely.
but it really matters how it's done.
The details matter.
What about motivation?
Ah, yes, the fuel for learning.
Does authentic learning make people more interested and excited about what they're learning?
That's a crucial question.
For sure.
The review examined 27 studies that looked at what they called motivational effects.
Okay.
Things like how much you enjoy learning,
Yeah.
your internal drive to learn,
Okay.
and your belief in your ability to succeed, or what we call self-efficacy.
And what did they find?
Similar to the cognitive findings, most of the studies showed moderate to large positive effects on motivation.
So people are more pumped about learning when it feels authentic.
That's what the research suggests.
And what about that contracting cases analysis again?
Right. Always got to dig deeper.
What stood out in terms of what made some authentic learning experiences more motivating than others?
Well, the big takeaway here was that using authentic materials and specifically aiming to make the learning feel connected to real-life experiences,
Okay.
that was strongly linked to higher levels of motivation.
So when you can clearly see the relevance of what you're learning
Yes,
to your own life and the world around you, you're way more likely to get into it.
you're more invested.
Makes sense. Were there any downsides here too?
Interestingly, yes.
What kind?
Focusing too much on complex problems,
Okay.
and specifically with the goal of having learners emulate professional work, that was actually linked to lower levels of motivation sometimes.
Wow. So that echoes what we saw with the cognitive effects.
Right.
It seems like while the idea of doing real professional work might sound exciting on the surface,
It's appealing.
the actual experience, if it's not done carefully,
Right.
can actually backfire and make people less motivated.
It can.
Maybe it feels too far out of reach or just not relevant to their current interests or skills.
It's possible there's a disconnect there.
Okay, so this brings us to a really important point that the review emphasizes,
What's that?
this idea of perceived authenticity.
Yes.
It turns out that only 2 of the 50 studies they looked at actually asked the learners themselves. You know, the people actually doing the learning,
Right, the ones it's all about.
how authentic the experience felt to them.
That's a huge oversight.
It seems like a pretty big gap in the research, right?
Absolutely, as the review points out.
Yeah.
What a teacher or a designer thinks is authentic might not actually feel that way to the learner.
Right. We all have our own perceptions and experiences.
Exactly. And if the learner doesn't see the activity as authentic, then all those potential benefits, both cognitive and motivational, might not actually happen.
It's all about how the learner experiences it.
Right, their perspective matters.
So what about those 2 studies that did ask about perceived authenticity?
Well, both of them found small positive effects
Okay.
on students' perceptions of realism or authenticity.
So there's a link, but it's small.
It is, and the fact that only 2 studies even looked at this
Right.
really highlights how much more research needs to be done in this area.
Yeah, we need to know if those design elements and those intentions we talked about are actually translating into experiences that feel real and meaningful to the learners themselves.
Exactly.
So the review uses this really helpful metaphor of authentic learning as a secret sauce. Right.
I like that metaphor.
We've talked about some of the ingredients, the design elements,
Yeah.
and flavors, you might say, the intentions.
The goals.
But it sounds like we're often missing this crucial step of actually asking the people who are tasting the sauce if they like it, if it actually tastes authentic to them.
That's a great way to put it.
So what does the review recommend for future research?
Well, first and foremost, they say we need much clearer definitions of those intentions of authenticity.
Okay.
Researchers need to be super specific about why they're trying to make learning feel authentic.
So like, what are you actually trying to achieve? What's the goal?
Exactly, because if you don't know what kind of flavor you're aiming for, it's going to be tough to know if you've actually hit the mark.
Right. You need a clear target.
What else? Well, they also stress the importance of having really detailed descriptions of the design elements used in studies,
Good.
like a recipe.
Right. So we can compare and contrast different approaches and figure out what's working and what's not.
Precisely. They also suggest doing more studies where you compare authentic learning with more traditional approaches,
Okay.
but in a really systematic way by changing just one element at a time.
Oh, interesting. So you can isolate the variables?
Exactly that way you can see which ingredients are having the biggest impact.
That makes sense.
And of course, they highlight the need to actually measure perceived authenticity.
Yeah. Got to ask the learners.
You got to get their feedback.
Right, because their experience is what ultimately matters.
Absolutely. And lastly, they emphasize the importance of researchers reporting effect sizes,
Okay.
which is basically a way to measure how strong the effects of an intervention are.
So we can compare results across different studies.
Exactly, and get a better sense of the overall impact of different approaches to authentic learning.
Okay, so lots of good recommendations for future research.
Definitely.
Now, the review also talks about this authenticity dilemma.
Yes, the balancing act.
What's that all about?
Well, it refers to this kind of inherent tension that can exist
Okay.
between making learning really reflect the complexity of the real world.
Which is often messy and unpredictable.
Exactly.
And providing learners with enough structure and guidance to actually succeed, especially if they're new to a topic.
It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, because real-world problems rarely have simple solutions.
Right. They're full of nuance.
But learners need some scaffolding, some support to navigate that complexity.
Otherwise, they might just feel lost and get discouraged.
Right. It's like teaching someone to swim by throwing them in the ocean.
Exactly. Sometimes you need a more controlled environment, like a pool.
To build those foundational skills.
So it's comfortable.
So it sounds like designing really effective, authentic learning experiences is all about finding that sweet spot,
It is.
making it real enough to be engaging,
Right.
but also providing enough support so that learners can actually grasp the concepts and develop their skills.
It's an ongoing challenge.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into authentic learning,
Yes.
what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the big takeaway is that authentic learning definitely holds a lot of promise.
Okay.
It can potentially make learning both more effective, helping you understand and remember things better,
Right.
and more engaging.
So it's a win-win.
Ideally, yes, but the research is still evolving.
Right.
The lack of clear definitions
Right.
and the fact that we often don't know how authentic the learning actually feels to the learner.
Yeah, we need more of that learner perspective.
We do. Those are big limitations that need to be addressed.
But understanding the reasons behind why someone's using authentic learning.
Right. The intention.
Like, are they trying to connect to your personal interests?
Yeah.
Mirror what professionals do? Engage with a community? Or reflect real-life situations?
All important context.
And knowing what those design elements are
Yes.
can help you make sense of the learning experiences you encounter.
Absolutely.
And even be more critical about what makes learning feel truly real and valuable to you.
That's the key.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to ponder.
Ooh, I like it.
Think about your own experiences as a learner.
Okay.
What are the things that make a learning activity feel genuinely authentic to you? And how does that feeling of authenticity affect your motivation to learn and your ability to really understand and remember what you've learned?
It's a great question to reflect on.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind as you continue your learning journey.
It is, and with this deep dive,
Yeah.
you now have a solid foundation for understanding this complex and exciting area of educational research.
It's all about understanding the possibilities and the limitations.
Exactly.
So keep exploring if you're curious.
Always keep learning.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep learning.